So I've been talking about for weeks now Joe Biden's strikes against the Houthis in Yemen and how ineffectual these strikes are going to be in his own stated goal of creating a calm in the Red Sea and allowing for shipping to seamlessly travel through this area as the Yemeni Houthis are attempting to attack ships in an effort to apply pressure on the Israeli economy, on the global economy, to bring about a ceasefire inside of Gaza amidst Israel's genocidal campaign there. And, I've been breaking down a bunch of different articles and different State Department, statements that have been made in Joe Biden's commentary as well, and the media coverage of all of this. But here we have Joe Biden himself in the middle of an interview that was done impromptu outside of the White House here, just basically saying the quiet part out loud and admitting that all of this is for nothing. For what exactly? So let's go ahead and hear it from the big man himself.
Are the airstrikes in Yemen working?
Well, when you say working, are they stopping the Houthis? No. Are they going to continue? Yes.
Okay, so, there was the helicopter or whatever in the background, so if you had a hard time hearing it, the question there was, are the strikes against the Houthis working? And Joe Biden's response was, are they working? No. Are we going to continue doing them? Yes. So, at this point, I honestly don't even know what to say. It's kind of a perfect embodiment of U.S. foreign policy in the modern era, where we will just wage these endless, nebulous wars where the generals, the president, nobody in the military apparatus, nobody in the political apparatus can justify to us what exactly are we trying to accomplish. How are we accomplishing that? How well is our goals? How well are our goals being achieved? What is the end goal here? What is the end date of this offensive? It's a perfect embodiment of just the forever war mentality here, right? And so to back that up here a little bit, we also have here from Ken Klippenstein a question and answer here from one of these Pentagon spokespeople, Sabrina Singh. And so the question is it now fair to say that the U.S. is at war with Yemen? And she says, we don't think we're at war. And the question response is, we've bombed them 5 times in a row now. If this isn't war, what is war? And she says, we are not at war with the Houthis. Okay, and then we also had this. As Houthis vow to fight on, the U.S. prepares for a sustained campaign. The byline here is officials say that they don't expect operations in Yemen to last for years, but they acknowledge it's unclear when the group's military capacity or capability will be sufficiently eroded. Okay, so we have a combination here, right? So the Yemeni Houthis launched these attacks in the Red Sea against commercial shipping vessels with the explicit purpose of trying to put economic pressure on Israel, on the global community, to then apply pressure on Israel to end their genocidal offensive into Gaza. Now, again, I want to make it clear, in the same vein that you don't have to like Hamas or like any of their actions or like any of what their political platform espouses to understand why Hamas exists, okay? In the same exact vein, you don't have to like the Houthis, you don't have to like their stated platform, you don't have to like their actions in order to understand why they are doing what they are doing, how they are doing what they are doing, and what an effective response would be to their actions. Okay, one thing that I can 100% guarantee you guys is not going to be effective is a sustained sort of low-level military campaign to try to diminish the Houthis' capacity to launch these attacks in the Red Sea. How do I know this? Well, for one, the United States backed the government and the military of Saudi Arabia to launch a nearly decades-long campaign against the Houthis to try to remove them from power. Okay, this went on for years and years and years, backed up by the most powerful military on the face of the planet, with one of the most powerful militaries in the region of Saudi Arabia. And they bombed the absolute living shit out of the Houthis. They conducted a blockade on Yemen that resulted in only, not an effective counter to the Houthi power within inside Yemen in the most densely populated areas of Yemen, okay, but resulted in one of the worst, if not the single worst, humanitarian catastrophes on the face of the planet, which we are still seeing the reverberations of to this day, right? So we've had a sort of tentative deal that has been worked out between the Houthis and between Saudi Arabia since that major offensive for to a large extent halted. And now we have the Joe Biden administration ramping up tensions with the Houthis. For what purpose exactly? To allow for Israel to continue their genocidal campaign inside of Gaza. That's it. That's the only reason. Because as far as we know, right, and we have evidence for this, given the fact that when there was a temporary pause inside of Gaza, the attacks in the Red Sea eased up. The attacks against U.S. personnel in Syria and Iraq, although that's a different situation, those also eased up. So we know for a fact, based on their stated goals of these attacks in the Red Sea, based on previous experiences of the halting of some of these attacks in the Red Sea during a ceasefire, that the only reason that global shipping, instead of going through the Red Sea and through the Suez Canal, through Egypt and to the European markets and having to divert around the southern tip of Africa, the only reason that this is even happening in the first place is because of Israel's actions inside of Gaza and because of the United States supporting, with absolutely no strings attached, Israel's offensive into Gaza. That is why this is happening. And so Joe Biden is choosing, instead of trying to push one of our closest allies in the world, who he has immense power over, in order to stop their actions inside of Gaza, he is choosing to basically declare war on the Houthis and engage in a who knows how long campaign against the Houthis with nebulous goals, with nebulous, if not completely ineffectual results, instead of trying to apply pressure on Israel to engage in a ceasefire. That's what Joe Biden is choosing to do here. And then also on the back end, trying to gaslight all of us and pretend as if this isn't a war. I mean, try to think of that from the, reverse perspective. If another country's military or a militia or if any group whatsoever was to attack the United States, to bomb the United States multiple times, what do we have? 5, 6, 7, 8 times now, okay? To bomb the United States, that the United States government would turn around and say, well, we're not really at war with them, right? These were just attacks. They were just isolated campaigns. The idea that the United States, if those attacks were done against us, would have that same perspective is utterly ridiculous. This is obviously Joe Biden getting us into a direct conflict, into a direct war with the Houthis. Now, keep in mind, he also does not have congressional approval to conduct these kinds of operations. I've talked about Ro Khanna. I've talked about, other like Justin Amash, other politicians, Rashida Tlaib, who have come out and who have made this point. Joe Biden does not have the authority to launch these kinds of warlike attacks against enemies abroad without the congressional approval of the House of Representatives. Okay, they have the sole ability, Congress has the sole ability to declare war. Joe Biden has not come to Congress at all in any way whatsoever to try to get these strikes approved. Okay, keep in mind, some people make the argument, under the War Powers Resolution, he has a 48-hour period to go to Congress after the strikes are conducted. It's all bullshit, okay? He has gone around to numerous different countries around the world, the United Kingdom, Australia, other European countries, whatever the case may be. He's had the time to go around to all of these different leaders, to form a coalition, to go to the United Nations, to ask for some sort of, an authorization to engage in these kinds of strikes. And he somehow has not had the time to come to the U.S. Congress to ask for permission to engage in these strikes. And then they turn around and they have the audacity to say, this is all defensive. It's defensive, right? So we get to position our warships across the entire globe on the opposite end of the earth, okay? We position our warships there as we are aiding and abetting in a genocidal campaign by Israel, our closest ally in the world, against the people of Gaza. And then when shipping routes are disrupted in this region, we then claim self-defense. When errant missiles are fired in the direction of Israel, when ships are attacked, in order to try to apply economic pressure on Israel to stop their campaign inside of Gaza. Then we claim self-defense. The idea that this is self-defense, the idea that this falls under the purview of that, specific resolution inside of the War Powers resolution that was passed, is utterly ridiculous, okay? This is Joe Biden getting us into another endless war with objectively no sight in end, as they point out here in this article. We don't expect it to last years, but who knows? It's unclear when the group's military capability will be sufficiently eroded. Let me tell you something again. We supported Saudi Arabia in their genocidal campaign inside of Yemen for years and years and years. Was that able to diminish the Houthi offensive capability? Was that able to fix the issue? No, of course it wasn't. Okay? And neither will this. No matter how many strikes that Joe Biden launches against the Yemeni Houthis, it is not going to be sufficient. The only thing that can actually solve this issue right now, if you want to open up trade in the Red Sea, if you want to diminish the potential likelihood of this devolving into a broader war in this region, the only thing that you can do is apply actual legitimate pressure, use the levers that you have at your disposal to get a ceasefire inside of Gaza.